If you were fixing your bra straps, fussing with wires, or battling your bra during this podcast, stop right now. You'll want to hear this. Those bra problems, those problems you thought you had to live with, Third Love has solved them. Their bras make it easy to get what you want, whether it's ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or stopping your shirt buttons from pulling. With over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, you'll never be stuck between two sizes that don't fit. So stop settling for bad bras. Now's the time to treat yourself and get your problem solved. Save $15 on your first order with code podcast15 at thirdlove.com.
Two sisters, one a respected TV producer, Jill Blackstone, and the other, Wendy. She was disabled, nearly blind and deaf, and Jill had devoted herself to taking care of Wendy.
Jill was her best friend, her sister, her everything.
But the sister bond was shattered when Wendy and some of the sisters' rescue dogs were found dead in a garage next to a toppled-over barbecue grill. Jill says accidental carbon monoxide poisoning killed everyone. Police do not believe her.
Police arrested Jill Blackstone for the murder of her sister.
Investigators think it was staged to look like an accident.
Who will you believe, especially now that a secret source has come forward with evidence never made public before?
Jill was a good producer. There's no doubt about that. But would she produce murder is the question.
Season 2 of Bad Bad Thing, The Blackstone Sisters, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
I always say, show me a perfect family. I'll show you a family with secrets.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 335 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing okay, man. How about you?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
We just got done finishing up recording our second and last part on the Lori Vallow Daybell story.
We did. It was so good.
TCAT. Yeah, it's just one of those stories that's hard to imagine is true, but we know it is.
Yeah, it's almost like you think it might be like a science fiction kind of a thing.
Or like a fictional novel.
Yeah.
But no, it's real life. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Jean-Francois Gratton.
Hey, Gratton.
Melissa Duran.
What's going on, Duran?
Gia.
What's happening, Gia?
Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
Eleanor.
Well, good old Eleanor.
Danielle Pruitt.
Hey, Daniel.
Jedi Master Kara.
Oh, hey, Kara.
Katie Parsons.
Well, thank you, Katie.
Stephanie Rains.
There's the Rains.
Kim Licata.
Hey, Kim.
Kim Panetti.
Another Kim.
Two Kims. Talissa Ermshire.
Well, thank you, Ermshire.
Kira Radford jumped out to our highest level.
Radford in the house. Thank you so much.
We had Hell's Bells.
You got to have those bells. AC/DC, right?
Yep. Sam Mick.
Hey, Sam.
Haley Yeager.
What's up, Yeager?
Shelby Trotz.
Hey, Trotz.
And last but not least, Elaine McKeon.
Thank you, McKeon.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Megan Maddox.
Well, thank you, Maddox.
Yeah, we appreciate the new Patreon support, the continued support. We also had a couple of great PayPal donations from Evan Seitz.
Well, thank you, Evan.
And Ann Kelly.
And you're awesome.
So thank you to everyone. All right, buddy, that was quick, but are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We are talking about the mysterious death of Rey Rivera. In May 2006, Rey Rivera went missing after rushing out of his Baltimore home one evening. 8 days later, his body was found in a conference room at the Belvedere Hotel. Rey had fallen through the roof after falling from a great height. The Baltimore police believe that Rey died of suicide, but his wife, family, and one detective suspect foul play in his death. So that's why I called it, mysterious death. I think to police, they don't believe it's a mystery. They believe it was a suicide, but there are a lot of other people who don't believe it, and so we're calling it a mystery.
I like a good mystery.
I think a lot of people do. Rey Omar Rivera was born on June 10th, 1973 at the Air Force Base Hospital in Madrid, Spain. Rey's father was an Air Force officer. And this is so strange. You know, we did the Lori Vallow Daybell case.
Yeah.
Her birthday and Ray's birthday are very close, but they also both happen to be very close to mine. And it's scary.
Freaks you out, huh?
Yeah. Same year, everything.
I think you're going to be okay, though.
Yeah, I think so. Ray's brother, Angel, told Unsolved Mysteries that they moved often as a military family, so all the siblings had a close bond. After Ray's dad retired, the family settled in Winter Park, Florida.
Man, how many people from the Air Force do you know? I mean, we grew up with so many kids that went to, their parents worked at the Air Force Base. I mean, I say we grew up with them for the few years that they were here, and then they were gone.
Yeah, you and I live close to a pretty big Air Force base. But also, and I think I've told this story before, my stepmother's dad was in the Air Force. So they moved around a lot, Hawaii, the Middle East, and ultimately settled here, you know, and stayed here. But it's got to be tough, especially on the kids, because, you know, if you're at a school for a year or two, you're making friends, and then next thing you know, poof, you're gone, and you have to do it all over again.
I think that's why the siblings probably were pretty close, right? Because
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's their friends.
Rey always seemed happy throughout his childhood and teenage years. People tended to gravitate towards him because of his sense of humor. He participated in basketball and swimming, but he also had a creative side. Rey loved movies, and his dream was to be a writer and director.
Okay, that's a good thing to aspire to be.
Either one of those.
Yeah, I wrote and directed a few flicks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know. I saw Rex West in the credits. Rey started playing water polo. During his junior year of high school, he was offered an athletic scholarship at the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California, and moved there in 1992. One of Rey's biggest aspirations was to be part of the U.S. water polo Olympic team.
Man, there's a sport you got to be in good shape.
Oh my gosh. I've never done it, but to just be able to tread water for minutes at a time, let alone an entire athletic event. Yeah, you got to be in some kind of shape.
Yeah, I was on that one undisclosed team that we had to tread water for a long time to be on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was not easy. I mean, I did have those floaty arms on.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of cool.
Does it rhyme with Ravy Beals?
Something close to that. But the ones where you can wear the floaties.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a junior.
Yeah. Junior version.
He graduated in 1996 and was hired by the Royal Spanish Swimming Federation in Barcelona. But Rey left Spain when he was told that he was selected as a contender for the 1996 U.S. water polo Olympic team. One of Rey's friends told author Makita Brotman that he had a falling out with his coach 2 weeks before the team left for the Olympics, and he was cut.
Well, it's had to be devastating.
Yeah, it had to be devastating because we said, right, this is one of his big dreams, was to make the U.S. water polo Olympic team, and he was so close to doing it. But, you know, the other thing that strikes me is in a lot of the unsolved cases recently, I feel like we've been talking about some people who had really accomplished or were on the verge of accomplishing some really great things in life.
Yeah, we have.
In 2000, Rey decided to switch careers. He got a job as a high school Spanish teacher and water polo / swimming coach. In his free time, he focused on developing his screenwriting skills. Rey had 3 part-time jobs, one of which was in the admissions department of the Los Angeles Film School. He was able to take screenwriting classes. He wrote his first script, a horror story starring a piano player. Okay, I don't know how good that was or would have been, but to say that you have 3 part-time jobs on top of being a high school Spanish teacher and water polo swimming coach. You're a busy guy.
Extremely busy.
I don't even think you're this busy, though. Yes.
Not that busy.
This is unbelievably no time for anything else busy.
I mean, my weekend tours are going to start up soon at the nursing homes, but
yeah, that's going to add some.
Yeah.
That year, Ray met a woman named Allison Jones, who was a few years older than him. In her 2018 book, Makita Brotman said that Allison was a sales executive and volleyball player. Allison and Ray fell in love and moved in together in 2002. They lived in Los Angeles, so Ray could pursue his career as a writer. Ray proposed to Allison in 2004. The couple was experiencing some financial hardships because Ray wasn't making money while trying to pursue his screenwriting career.
It's a tough gig to break into.
Well, think of a lot of people who live in Los Angeles, move to LA, Hollywood, to try to break into entertainment.
Yeah.
Whether it's writing, directing, being an actor, those are tough gigs to crack.
They are. My son lives in LA.
Yes.
When I talk to him, when he goes out to these different with these different groups of friends, and this one group, they have breakfast every Saturday, and there's like 40 of them. And I always say, so what do these people do? And he names off, well, they're actors and writers. And I say, is that what they really do? And he says, no.
That's what they aspire to
exactly.
be. But
a few of them are, but most of them are just aspiring to be.
And most of those people have to be waiters or work some other job to support themselves because, let's be honest, it's pretty expensive to live out there.
Yeah. I mean, my son lives in a studio apartment, and I don't want to say how much it costs, but it's like ridiculous what that rent is.
You could buy a mansion probably here where we live.
Yeah, exactly.
Ray reached out to his close friend, Porter Stansberry, who lived in Baltimore. Ray and Porter had been friends since high school. Porter owned a company called Stansberry and Associates Investment Research, now renamed Stansberry Research, which published a financial newsletter called The Rebound Report. The newsletter gave subscribers tips on stocks that would potentially rebound. According to Unsolved Mysteries, subscribers paid up to $1,000 for each newsletter.
And it better be a really good newsletter.
Yeah, I'm thinking for that amount of money, it must have been extremely detailed, extremely researched, because that is a lot of money to pay for information. Stansberry and Associates was a division of a larger company, Agora Publishing, located in the Mount Vernon neighborhood of Baltimore. Porter wanted Ray to write his newsletters. Ray accepted the job, and he and Allison moved across the country in December 2004.
So he got noticed for his writing, just not the type of writing he really wanted to do it.
No, but he needed to make some money to make ends meet. Before Ray joined the company, the SEC had charged Stansberry and Associates with fraud. According to the Baltimore Sun, in April 2003, the SEC filed a complaint claiming that Agora defrauded readers by charging $1,000 for false information about a Maryland-based company that supplied nuclear power plants with enriched uranium. The company was later fined $1.5 million.
And there you go. Maybe a reason not to trust a newsletter.
All I know is if you're paying $1,000, you expect that information, number one, to be correct,
sure.
Or not false, let's say, not made up.
Right.
But number two, very well researched, and it better make you some money, or else that's going to be the last newsletter you pay for.
Yeah. If I'm going to spend $1,000 a month on a newsletter every month, I expect to make a bunch of money off of that.
And it's hard to make a bunch of money off something that is completely made up. Allison told Unsolved Mysteries that part of Ray's job was to clean up the company's reputation. In addition to writing the newsletter, Ray was also an assistant water polo coach at Johns Hopkins University. Allison told the show that she and Ray planned to live in Baltimore for 2 years. They settled into their house, got involved in a local church, and were building a happy life together. They got married in November 2005.
So it sounds like things are going good.
It seems like everything's going, very well.
Yeah.
But Rey left Stansberry and Associates in the fall of 2005. According to a 2007 article from WBAL TV, he seemed unhappy about work because some of the stocks he wrote about weren't performing as expected. Again, going back to, if you're paying a bunch of money for information, that information better be good and it better pan out. Apparently, he still did some videography work for Agora as an independent contractor. Rey and Allison had only been married for about 6 months at the time of his death. They were making plans to move back to California, and Allison said that Rey wanted to have children.
Okay, so get back to California where maybe they felt more comfortable being, but start that family.
And maybe where he could get back to, his dream of being a screenwriter. But, the one thing that jumps out at me here, everything that we've been talking about, nothing is really pointing to the fact that this guy is unhappy, that he's planning to end his life.
No. Talking about having kids, talking about moving back west.
Allison noticed that Rey seemed worried about something 2 weeks before he died. She didn't think much of it until strange things started happening around their house. Their security alarm went off at 1 a.m. on May 15th, 2006. Apparently it had never gone off before. Allison went downstairs and saw Rey with a bat in his hands. He seemed very fearful, which was unlike him. And so this made her afraid too.
I mean, alarms go off sometimes. Maybe he was just
bracing for a fight But I think in the context of what's about to happen, maybe it looks a little different to people.
Yeah, I think you can go back and recount it a little bit different than
analyze it.
Yeah.
The police responded to the house, but told the couple that a squirrel had most likely triggered the alarm. The alarm went off again around 1 a.m. on the 16th. The alarm was activated because someone had tried to tamper with one of the windows on the lower floor. Okay, now we're getting into the area of
concern
a little bit. It's also strange that the alarm went off 2 days in a row at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Of 1 a.m.
I'm thinking, I don't think that was a squirrel the night before.
I don't think so either. And then you find out that somebody had tried to tamper with a window. What does that mean? Break in? Pry marks?
Right.
Tamper is kind of a strange word. We don't know. May 16th was the day that Rey went missing. Allison was leaving for a business trip that morning. Rey woke up with her and made her breakfast. She told Rey she loved him, and he said, "Thank you for loving me so much." He walked her to her car and she left. And you and I often talk about the last conversations that people have.
Right.
Sometimes it's hurtful words that you wish you hadn't said. And at a certain point, you realize you can never take them back.
Right. Too late.
But this sounds like a very happy, loving exchange.
Yeah. Thank you for loving me so much.
According to WBAL TV, on May 16th, Rey spoke with a member of the Maryland Freemason Lodge to ask about joining and purchased the book Freemasons for Dummies.
I got a few of those for dummy books.
I was going to say, you have a lot of those.
Not a lot. I mean,
Podcasting for Dummies.
28 books. Is that a lot?
For Dummy series? Yeah.
Or just in general?
Banking for Dummies. Pretty much anything you do and then add 4 dummies on it.
Yeah. I always like those shortcut books. You know, those books you could read back in
Cliff Notes.
I love those.
I know you. Yeah. I was a big Cliff Note fan myself.
Yep.
If there wasn't a movie made of the book, then I'm going Cliff Notes.
That's right.
The weekend before, he had read The Builders, a book about masonry. The lodge member later spoke with WBAL TV and said the conversation was typical of someone who wanted to learn about membership. Allison finished her work and got to her hotel in the evening. She called Rey, but he didn't answer, which she thought was unusual. At the time, Allison and Rey were hosting one of her colleagues, a woman named Claudia. Claudia had been in the house with Rey in the late afternoon, early evening. So Allison called Claudia later that evening and asked where Rey was. Claudia said that around 6:30 p.m., Ray went into the kitchen to get a snack, then returned to his office. She was staying in the adjacent guest bedroom and could hear what he was doing. Ray received a call. He had a brief conversation. Then she heard him say, "Oh shit," before he ran out of the house. This is according to author Makita Brotman.
Well, it could be, "Oh shit, I did forget to do that. I better run up or run over there or run up to this or that to take care of it." That's normally what "oh shit" means when I say it. I forgot something.
But again, I talk about context a lot.
Yeah.
In the context of him dying later, well, that conversation takes on a much different tone, right? When you first hear it, you think, it could be any number of different things,
right?
But nothing that I need to worry about. He's a grown man. He's going to take care of whatever he needs to take care of. But when the person later finds out that that person's dead, well, then that conversation might mean something a little different. Angie's List is now Angie, the home to skilled neighborhood professionals. Angie is your home for everything home, and they've made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. If you own a home, you know how much work it can take, whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality. It can be hard just to know where to start, but now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Angie has over 20 years of home service experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions, and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly. And all of that means you can take care of just about any home project in just a few taps, because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. Claudia said he ran out like he was late for an appointment, leaving his computer and the office lights on. Ray came back inside a couple minutes later, but only for a second, as if he forgot something. He then drove off in Allison's truck, and Claudia said she hadn't seen him since. Claudia called Allison the next morning around 5:30 a.m. and told her that Ray never came back. Allison knew something wasn't right, so she came home and reported Ray missing. And this is something that you and I talk about quite a bit. When you think about spouses, they talk a lot. They talk on a pretty frequent schedule.
Yeah.
I think about my wife and I. She always calls me at the same time every day when she's driving on her way home from work. If she doesn't, I start to get a little worried. Now, it could be that she decided to call one of our girls or whatever. I don't get that worried, but it does cross my mind that she hasn't called me yet. But normally, she gets home and everything's fine. That is much different from, your spouse leaving at sometime in the evening and then finding out that they never returned.
Big difference. I mean, I know that you would be on the horn pretty quick if she didn't show up here by a certain time and panic and...
Oh, you mean from work?
Yes.
Yeah. But no doubt Allison thought it was something, right? To the point where she raced home. She immediately reported him missing. When Allison entered the home, she found an open soda can in the kitchen, a bag of chips, and Ray's Invisalign. You know what Invisaligns are?
Nice little clear braces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never tried them, but apparently they work pretty good, I guess. Their bedroom and office lights were still on. This supported Claudia's statement that Ray had rushed out of the house suddenly. Allison started calling Ray's family and friends. No one had seen or heard from him. Family and friends soon gathered in her home to help her make phone calls and flyers and to go out to distribute those flyers. And that's what family and friends do, right? When they find out that someone's missing or in trouble or something's going on, they jump right in.
It's all hands.
It's all hands on deck. Everybody helps out. Ray's friend Porter Stansberry offered a $1,000 reward for information and helped get the media involved in the case. At the time of Ray's disappearance, Porter Stansberry gave a statement to the Baltimore Sun. He said about his friend, he's a happy guy. He and his wife had just booked a trip to go to New Mexico in a few weeks. This is not a man that wanted to leave. I've got to find my friend. I can't imagine my life without him. He's my best friend.
So this guy's got a pretty good company going, it seems like. And this is his best friend. I just kind of think $1,000 is a little short.
Yeah, I get that. It jumped out at me a little bit too. You know, I don't want to disparage Porter Stansberry, but we're going to talk about it later. There are a lot of people who have insinuated that he's involved in this case.
Yeah.
Now, you could make the argument that if you were involved in the case and you knew what happened to somebody, you could offer all the money in the world because you would know that it would never be paid out.
Well, that's true too. It's a good counter claim. But I also think, why not offer $10,000? It's not going to be paid out until someone comes forward.
Yeah, we have no idea how much money this guy had, but I do think he had a lot more than $1,000. I get your point on that. Days passed with no leads. By this point, Ray's cell phone was dead, and there had been no credit card activity or cash withdrawals from the couple's bank account. All of those, to me, are bad signs. On May 22nd, Allison's parents were driving around the city looking for her truck, which Ray was driving that day. They found it in a parking lot behind a building on St. Paul Street near the Belvedere Hotel, which had been converted into a condo complex. The Belvedere is located near the Stansberry office, meaning Ray was likely familiar with this area. There was a ticket on the truck. The parking attendant told the police that the truck was likely parked there the night Ray disappeared because he found it when he got to work the next morning.
Well, this is great information for the police because now they know where they need to search.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? This is a good place to start the search because they know the truck has been there since the night he disappeared. Ray's phone was missing. According to a news interview with Frederick Beelfield, the former Baltimore police commissioner, there was nothing of evidentiary value in the truck. Police and volunteers conducted more searches in the area around the truck. On May 24th, 3 of Ray's co-workers decided to go to the top level of the parking garage next to the Belvedere Hotel. They looked over the edge and saw a pair of flip-flops and a hole in the lower roof of the Belvedere. This roof was part of a section that juts out from the main building. The only way to see the hole was if you were on top of the parking garage or on top of the hotel. And I imagine that had to have been quite a sight.
Pretty alarming.
So these 3 men called the police, who entered the building and spoke with concierge Gary Shivers, who let them into an unused conference room on the 2nd floor. Ray's body was found in this room. According to the Baltimore Sun, Ray fell from a great height and crashed through the roof of the section of the building that juts out from the main building. He fell through the 3rd floor and landed in the 2nd floor conference room. Gary Shivers told Unsolved Mysteries, you could see the wall where the blood had came down and his legs were towards the door. I looked up and I saw outside. That roof there was metal. So he came right through the metal and right through the ceiling.
Yeah, some pretty intense velocity.
And I think that's where the theory comes that he had to have jumped or come from a great height, a much higher elevation. Ray's family was called to the Baltimore police headquarters and informed that the body found in the building was Ray. Detective Michael Baer responded to the call about the body. He described the hole in the roof as clean. The hole was about 40 inches in diameter. Detective Baer could fit his body through the hole, but with little clearance. And we haven't talked about it yet, but Ray was a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
Like 6'5", 260 pounds. Baer told Unsolved Mysteries he came vertical through that thing like a projectile. So I think all of this information, right, it paints quite a picture or like a video in your mind of how this happened, like falling straight down, almost like a diver, whether head first or feet first. But obviously the size of this hole told investigators that he didn't come down sideways.
No. Yeah, obviously he didn't tumble down, right? He came down like a missile.
Yeah, like straight down. Ray's autopsy found that he had multiple rib fractures, punctured lungs, lacerations, skull damage, and 2 breaks in his right leg. It is important to note that he tested negative for any drug. The next task that investigators had was figuring out from which point Ray fell. It was initially thought that Ray either fell, jumped, or was pushed from the top roof of the hotel. However, the distance between the hole and the top roof was about 45 feet. It was thought that it would have been difficult, perhaps impossible, for Ray to make this jump. Allison noted that Ray was afraid of heights, so she didn't think he would willingly go all the way to the top roof.
And wouldn't you be kind of afraid to jump too if you had a fear of heights? I don't have that fear. I mean, I don't enjoy being up high on a narrow ledge, but I don't have that fear of heights where I can't look down.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
You know I do. I have a serious fear of heights. And so my first thought, as we go through this, is that if someone was planning to end their life and they were known to have a fear of heights, with sadly all the different ways that we know people can end their lives, why would they pick that one?
Yeah. Why that avenue?
That seems like it would be at the bottom of the list of what they would pick. Now, the second theory was that he fell from the parking garage, which has 5 floors. But again, the hole was too far away. The garage was only 20 feet tall, so it was possible that Ray could have survived the fall. If the fall was fatal, it likely wouldn't have caused the extensive injuries that he suffered. And I think, when you're talking about that distance, is he going to crash through this metal roof like a missile from that height? And I don't know. I think you have to take that into account.
Yeah, I don't know if that theory works for me. With my quantum physics background, it doesn't add up.
You've already done the trajectory in your head. I'm just thinking that the height doesn't seem right. Also, with the hole being described as far away from the garage as it was, let's say someone was able to run and jump.
Right.
It seems unlikely that they're going to come down straight as apparently he did.
Yeah.
And I don't think they would have the speed necessary to rip through this metal roof. So I'm with you. This theory does not seem very likely. Another theory was that Ray jumped from the 11th floor ledge, which wraps around the Belvedere. In order to get to the ledge, Ray would have had to go through someone's condo or an office. The windows along the ledge are half windows that don't open very far, and the ledge is narrow. It would have been hard for Ray to get up there because of his size. So again, I'm going to discount this theory for a number of reasons. 6'5", 260, and you're trying to get out of a half window. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you're trying to get out of a half window onto a very narrow ledge, and you're afraid of heights. It just doesn't seem reasonable.
But could there ever be a reason that you would do this if you felt your life was in danger, and the only way to escape that danger is to squeeze your ass through that tiny window?
Yep.
And not realizing, but knowing that your only option is to stand on a very narrow ledge. And we've seen it in movies where they do this, right?
Yeah.
So, that's possible, but not probable.
Yeah, I get where you're going. I guess when I was talking about it, I was thinking willingly doing this. But if you were trying to get away from somebody, you might do something that you normally wouldn't be willing to do because you're trying to save your life. According to Detective Bear, the exact location where Ray fell is still a mystery. So that's pretty interesting in that they haven't been able to figure that out. You would think with all the technology and that they would somehow be able to even using computers, build some type of trajectory model that would show them where he would have had to have jumped from.
I mean, I'm thinking just taking some crash car dummies up there and tossing them off different locations. And I mean, I know it disrupts the whole hotel business, but
yeah, but it's not unheard of.
Right.
We know police have done that in the past. Ray's cell phone was found on the rooftop near the hole. The phone was still functional when it was found, and it had no cracks. Ray's glasses were also found on the rooftop, and they weren't even scratched. So, as we mentioned earlier, a pair of flip-flops was found on the roof. The strap on one flip-flop was broken, and another flip-flop had drag marks. So, we got more information here, and you kind of have to break each one of these down. What are the chances that a phone is not only functional, but not a single crack or, anything like that if it were to fall from the height that we think it would have taken for this guy to plunge through this metal roof?
But if it was on his person, it could have been cushion.
Could have been.
And it could have just slid out at the end, and that's where it laid.
Could have been. So then you have to think about the glasses as well.
I mean, I can understand the phone. I just can't get my head around the glasses.
Yeah, well, if a phone maybe you have in your pocket, your shirt pocket or something like that. But even with glasses in a shirt pocket, they just seem so fragile to not, even have a scratch on them. That seems strange. And then the flip-flops, I don't know what you make of that. The thing that really jumps out at me is the drag marks. What does that mean? Does it mean that he was trying to stop someone from pushing him, and that's what caused those marks? I don't really know what it meant by drag mark.
Now, could you make the case that he never fell through the roof?
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure, we may talk about other theories later, but if I believe I know where you're going, it's that the hole was made and then he somehow ended up in that conference room. But then you have to explain, okay, how did he get the extensive injuries that he did?
Right.
But that would explain how maybe the cell phone, the glasses, and all of that were still pretty much intact. And I think Detective Bayer kind of backed up what you're alluding to, because he said he immediately suspected that the evidence was staged. Although Ray's belongings were found on the rooftop, investigators did not find the engraved money clip he always carried with him, and this money clip has never been found. I don't know if he's saying that he didn't go through that hole.
Right.
He could be saying that somebody came back down later and staged the cell phone and the glasses and the flip-flops and all that.
Strong possibility.
Stephen Janis, an investigative reporter, walked through the hotel to try to find witnesses. No one reported seeing Ray or hearing anything unusual on May 16th.
Now, I find that really bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
If you got 260 pounds crushing through
a metal roof.
Yeah, I think you're going to hear something.
And landing, very, very hard, you would think it would be a loud crash that would be heard by someone. Now, this is a conference room. We don't know how far away it is from the main hotel traffic. Ray's brother Angel told Unsolved Mysteries that it would have been difficult for Ray to walk into the building and get all the way to the roof without anyone stopping him. Ray would have had to walk back up stairwells, some of which are locked, and would have had to use a door that was normally locked to get to the roof.
So a lot of challenges,
according to Ray's brother. But I think even more important than that was that Detective Bayer checked the security cameras and found no footage of Ray at the hotel. Unfortunately, the rooftop camera was disconnected.
Why are the cameras that always need to be connected disconnected?
It seems a little convenient.
It does.
Doesn't it? Investigators also focused on Ray's last phone call. The call came from the switchboard of Agora Publishing. Because of this, the police couldn't figure out who exactly made the call. According to Detective Bayer, Stansberry put a gag order on their employees within hours of Ray being found. He also claimed that Porter Stansberry would not return their calls, which he found suspicious.
Well, I find it suspicious too. This is one of his best friends. Why?
No, his best friend. His best friend. He said that.
Why wouldn't he want to cooperate? Why wouldn't he want to say, hey, people, talk about what you know. Tell the police anything and everything. Don't leave anything out. And, hey, detective, let's go in my office. Let's talk about this and see how I can help you.
Now, I get it. There are people who want to protect their companies from all kinds of things. Maybe it's a liability issue, but I don't understand why he wouldn't want to talk to detectives. And I think this is part of the reason why a lot of people have been suspicious of him. If you look online, you'll see it. Hell, the detective is suspicious of him. On May 25th, the Baltimore Sun reported that the police were treating Ray's death as a suicide. Allison didn't believe Ray wanted to end his life. His family had said that he wasn't depressed or experiencing any mental health issues. He was happy, and there were no signs he was planning to end his life.
The family didn't think he wanted to end his life. All we know is he got that mysterious phone call, right? Where he said, oh, shit. The thing is, we don't know what that phone call was about.
Yeah, so could that have been the impetus for something? We don't know. Allison met with the medical examiner who she claimed told her, I know what they're trying to do, and we are not closing this case. The medical examiner's office told her that the way Ray's shins were broken was inconsistent with a fall, but wouldn't give further details. So, that's pretty interesting if it really happened. I mean, this is coming from Allison. That's the only side of the story that we have. But I know what they're trying to do suggests that they're trying to close this case and not look into it any further.
So if the way that his shins were broken were not consistent with a fall, then what were they consistent with?
Well, we don't know because there were no further details. The medical examiner declared Ray's manner of death undetermined, despite the Baltimore police's belief that he died of suicide. While Ray was missing, Allison searched the entire house for clues. She found a note taped behind the office computer. The note was folded up and wrapped in plastic. It was typed in a small font, so it would fit on a smaller section of paper. Allison knew Ray typed the note the day he disappeared because she found scraps of paper in the trash can. And the contents of the note are strange. It begins and ends with phrases used by Freemasons. The following quotes come from Newsweek. The note begins with, brothers and sisters, right now around the world, volcanoes are erupting. What an awesome sight. Whom virtue unites, death will not separate. That was a well-played game. Congratulations to all who participated. I hope you enjoyed it, but it was time to wake up. So here I am. I'd like to welcome those who accepted our invitations for membership during the game. We couldn't have done it without you. I took on the endeavor to find the truth, but not for its own sake. In accepting this quest for the truth, I hope to make myself, with the help of others, into a man worthy and ready to receive it. Members of the council, please note that I will lend careful concentration to the traditional responsibilities. In light of those proceedings, I will satisfy the standard request of this council within the appropriate time. Okay, I'm just going to say it, but I didn't understand any of that.
No, I really didn't either. Is this something that would be a speech given at a Freemason?
Maybe. And maybe that's why it sounds, a little odd to us because we're not familiar with that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. The note includes a list of people Ray knew with a request to make them and himself 5 years younger. Stansberry was mentioned several times in the note, according to WBAL TV. Allison found it odd that Ray left out the names of some significant people in his life. So Stansberry's mentioned a number of times, but Ray wants himself and other people to be made 5 years younger. I'd like that too. But, writing it on a note and taping it to the back of my computer, I'm pretty sure is not going to make it happen.
Maybe there's a special portal that works that way. Write this phrase down, put it on the back of your computer. Before you know it, you shall be 5 years younger. I tape stuff behind your monitor all the time.
Does it come true?
I'm still waiting.
But in all seriousness, you would have to say that some of this behavior seems odd.
It does seem odd.
Right? The words seem odd. I want to be 5 years younger. Make us 5 years younger. I know they said that, he wasn't experiencing any type of mental health issues. Some of these things might make you question that.
Yeah. But I know he also wanted to join the Freemasons.
He did.
So maybe this is part of his,
initiation,
his pledge to them. I mean,
could be.
I know they used to have like a kind of a secret thing to get into the Freemasons. So maybe and he was a writer. So maybe he chose to write out this bizarre pledge.
The note also listed movies, books, and music that inspired Ray, such as Meet Joe Black, Minority Report, The Bourne Identity, and Lord of the Rings.
All good movies.
The note also mentioned directors such as M. Night Shyamalan and actor Christopher Reeves. Towards the end of the note, Ray wrote, "I stand before you a man who understands the purpose and value of our secrets. That's why I cherish them as secrets. Life is a test to see if you can control your spirit. Take care and enjoy the festivity." So Allison Googled the first sentence of the note, and the first search result was a website about the Freemasons. She told Unsolved Mysteries that Ray was curious about secret societies and might have been researching for a screenplay about the Masons.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, something that you were just talking about. You could look at it as very, very strange, or you could look at it as a screenwriter who's jotting down a bunch of different things that he's researching. And so for that reason, it doesn't really make sense to us.
Maybe in his research, he stumbled across something he shouldn't have.
Well, there were some people who thought the letter could be a coded message. Ray was known for writing down anything that came to mind, whether that be phone numbers, poetic lines, or philosophical ideas. Because of this, no one is really sure what the note means. And I don't know how anyone would be able to figure it out absolutely, because I don't want to call it gibberish, but it seems like a collection of
thoughts
that maybe don't all go together. The Baltimore police sent the note to the FBI lab. The FBI thought the note was strange, but they didn't think it was a suicide note. And I don't know why you would. There was nothing in there really that hinted at anything like that.
No, it was just bizarre.
3 weeks into the investigation, Detective Michael Baer was reassigned to an FBI task force. He was one of the only detectives who did not believe that Ray died of suicide. After Baer left, Allison called the station to follow up. She was allegedly told, "You need to get through your head. Your husband committed suicide."
Pretty rough to hear.
I think it's very rough to hear. And I think you could also make a conspiracy theory out of this Michael Baer being reassigned. Now, maybe it has nothing to do with the fact that he didn't believe Ray died of suicide, or maybe it did. I don't know. But when you have the medical examiner saying, at least according to Allison,
right,
something's not adding up here, I know what they're trying to do. And then she calls them up and they say, you just got to get it through your head.
And the medical examiner said it's undetermined, the death.
Yes. And that part we know is true. It does seem odd, to say the least. Baltimore Police Commander Fred Bealfield told WBAL TV in 2007, based on what we've seen, his interest in the Masonic Order was not to do charitable work. Somehow it was linked to his interest in the movie industry, in this theory that somehow there was control being exerted by the Masonic Order. So this is really where we start to get into, possible theories. This guy's saying somehow the Masonic Order is involved, possibly. Allison believes Ray had information, perhaps that he found accidentally, and someone murdered him. However, she doesn't know what information could be so bad that someone wanted to kill him. And you kind of mentioned that
he stumbled across something.
Yeah, while he was doing some research. Did it have something to do with the Freemasons, or did it have something to do with the company?
Or an individual?
Or another individual? Ray's brother, Angel, believes that the motive was money. He suggested the possibility that the newsletter caused someone to lose money, and they wanted revenge.
It'd have to be a lot of money that they lost, but sure.
Well, and to want revenge on Ray. I get it. He was writing the newsletter. But was his name on it? Was Ray the one giving the stock advice, the financial advice? That wasn't his arena. So I can't imagine that he was doing anything other than taking information from various financial experts and crafting it into a newsletter.
But if his name was on there as editor, maybe they felt that.
That could be.
That it was his fault.
In an interview with the Washington Examiner, Angel said that some of the Belvedere employees told him confidentially that Ray had to have been pushed from the side of the building to land where he did. He said, apparently there is another set of doors to the roof, and their impression was that was more logical, that he would have been pushed from there.
But wouldn't you think the police would have investigated that?
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I'm not sure how much investigation they did on that subject. I think, if you make that determination early on that Rey Rivera died from suicide, then are you really going the extra mile to, look at the trajectory and do a lot of testing? Because you've already come to your conclusion.
Yeah.
So why are you going to waste resources on trying to figure all that out if you've already made your determination? The Examiner obtained an engineering study that concluded that Ray landed roughly 43 feet from the wall and would have had to have been running 11 miles per hour to jump off the roof and land where he did.
Well, 11 miles an hour sounds kind of fast, but I think somebody can do that.
Yeah, I don't know that it is all that fast. I remember an episode of The Office where they had one of those police radar things out front, and Michael Scott, I thought, was running like 12 or 13 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So
I'm just trying to think of a 6'4", 6'5", 260-pound guy with flip-flops on, sprinting down. I mean, sounds like it can be done.
I think it could be done. I think the question is that what really happened?
Right.
In 2020, Unsolved Mysteries creator Terry Dunn Muir appeared on a podcast and revealed that an unidentified person tried to pick Ray's computers up after the police took them. According to Marie Claire, she said, when Allison went to the police station to pick up Ray's computer, the detective mentioned someone had called a couple of times and asked to pick up the computers and was very interested in the status of the computers. Allison was very troubled.
Well, rightfully so. It's very strange.
Right. Because who would want to get their hands on those computers?
And why? What was inside those computers?
Right. And I think those two questions, the answers to those two questions go hand in hand. The release of the Unsolved Mysteries reboot led to massive online conversations about the case. One Reddit user pointed out that one of the movies listed in Ray's note was The Game, which ends with the main character jumping off the roof of a luxurious hotel. They suggested that Ray might have tried to imitate the movie. However, Terry Dunn Muir debunked the theory in an interview with Entertainment Weekly and said that Allison and the FBI reviewed the note thoroughly and didn't place any particular significance on The Game because Ray liked mini-movies.
I do remember that movie, though, where Michael Douglas jumps off of a building and comes crashing through another glass rooftop, right where his party is. It was a good movie.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But here we see, like we do in a lot of cases where the circumstances are very mysterious. You're going to have a lot of people online, putting forth their theories. It could have been this, it could have been that, or debunking other people's theories. In 2020, Porter Stansberry made his first public statements in 14 years to the Baltimore Sun. He said he was shocked and hurt by the insinuations made in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, and said, the reason I've never commented about Ray's death publicly, first and foremost, is because I never thought there was any mystery about why or how he died. Stansberry said he has received death threats and his family has been harassed online. He also said that the claims that he didn't cooperate with investigators were untrue, telling the Sun, I did everything I could to help. He claimed he hired a PI to look into Ray's disappearance and even helped with the search. He added that after Ray's body was found, we were all sad and shocked by the fact that Ray killed himself, but once we saw all the facts and his financial pressures, it wasn't much of a mystery. Stansberry said the statement that he put a gag order on his employees was a lie. Employees were told to refer inquiries to a spokesperson, and he noted that he spoke with a detective on June 23, 2006, after Detective Michael Barrett was reassigned to a different case.
So it sounds like he was forthcoming after all.
If what he's saying is correct, right? We've got some discrepancies. We don't know exactly who is telling the truth. The one thing that I want to pick out of what he said and examine is he said, once we saw all the facts and his financial pressures, he doesn't go into detail.
Right.
Now, his family said he was happy and all of that. Financial pressure is something that can really take a toll on a person.
It can.
Now, I would think his wife, Allison, would know exactly what the finances were. If she didn't at the time, she would have known after he died.
Yes. It would only be logical. Unless he was on the hook with a bookie.
That nobody else knew about. Right. Stansberry explained that Ray resigned from his company 6 months before he disappeared, and there was no ill will between them. Ray didn't want to write newsletters anymore. He said there was no connection between the fraud case and Ray's death. He also spoke about the fact that Ray's final phone conversation was traced to the switchboard of Agora Publishing. He explained that all of their calls were routed through a main switchboard. So, I mean, he's trying to answer all of these questions. Is he being truthful? That's the main thing to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's not. He said Ray's call might have come from someone at Agora, but Ray was doing freelance work for another subsidiary. Stansberry said the call could not have come from someone with his specific company. He told the Sun, every person in our company who had worked with Ray was on the Eastern Shore at the time that call was made, having a corporate retreat in St. Michael's. No one in my company was in town when Ray disappeared. The idea we were calling him from our switchboard is ridiculous. Interestingly, Stansberry revealed that Ray once asked him if he was in a leadership position with the Freemasons, which he thought was a joke. He claimed that the weekend before Ray went missing, Allison told him Ray was morose and would not get out of bed. She was worried about his mental health.
So that's a new piece of information.
It is. And Allison responded. She said that Ray was happy in general, but he was anxious about work at the time of his disappearance. In her interview with the Sun, she said she couldn't recall having that conversation with Stansberry. She said she didn't say she didn't have it. She just said she couldn't recall it. Ray's close friend, Brad Hopman, told the Sun that Ray asked him repeatedly about being a member of the Freemasons. The week before Ray died, he asked Hopman to visit his apartment in Jersey City alone. Ray had a key to his place, but returned it. Hopman said he was acting really, really weird. And finally, Makita Brotman, the author of the 2018 book An Unexplained Death, The True Story of a Body at the Belvedere, told the Baltimore Sun that Unsolved Mysteries interviewed her for their episode. She told them the hotel roof was easily accessible. Unsolved Mysteries portrayed it as difficult to get to.
So again, maybe some misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, Unsolved Mysteries is a TV show. My assumption is they try to be as accurate as possible, but it is entertainment.
Right.
So did they take liberties? I don't know.
So he could have got to the rooftop easily, according to her.
Yes, if you believe her. Again, in so many of these cases, right? Doesn't a lot of it come down to, these contradictions and who's telling the truth, who's remembering correctly? Let's not forget some of these statements are made many, many years after his death. So who's remembering exactly what happened, what conversations were had? Brotman's book concludes that Ray most likely had a mental break and jumped off the roof. So I'm assuming that she did a lot of research for this book. Again, the accuracy of everything. You can question whether it's a book, whether it's unexplained mysteries. Where'd they get their information from? How accurate is it? Now, this is just her theory, because I don't think anyone knows for sure, could know for sure exactly what happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories.
It's been 17 years since Rey Rivera died. And this is another case that leaves many people with more questions than answers. Like I said, no one knows how or why Ray ended up at the Belvedere, how exactly he fell through the lower roof, whether it was an accident, suicide, or murder. And let's go back to this note. The true meaning of the note remains a mystery as well. So we don't know what happened. There are a couple of things that I would point to. One is that it seems to me that he almost had to have come from the roof. Now you can argue, did he run and leap off? Did he jump off? Was he pushed? Right? Then that separates the suicide, accident, murder thing.
Right.
I do go back to this engineering report that talked about the fact that he would have had to have been running around 11 miles an hour to get to the spot where he landed. If that is true, does it seem more likely than not that he got a running head start and jumped off this roof?
It's probable.
It is. I don't think you can push someone 11 miles an hour. Now you could shove them at the end of it, which would increase the trajectory.
Yeah.
But could you do it hard enough that, they get as far as where he ultimately landed? That part I don't know. And to say that someone did, then we have to figure out why someone would have wanted him dead.
Yeah.
And from the information, there really was nothing other than, a few theories about, well, maybe someone was mad they lost money based on the newsletters or this or that. But then how do they get him to the Belvedere?
Right. Wouldn't have been an easier way?
Yeah. So a reader just calls his house and says, I need you to meet me at the Belvedere. And he says, oh shit, and runs out the door. That doesn't make sense.
Meet me on the rooftop. But like you said in the beginning, this is a mystery.
It is.
This is why.
And, it's these types of cases that people study. They go back and forth on. They fill up forums, dissecting it and giving their thoughts and theories and all of that. But at the end of the day, man lost his life. We just don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
So that's it for our episode on the mysterious death of Rey Rivera. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Yeah, let's hear them.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Matt from up in Canada. I was just listening to the Max kid that was on the jet ski that went missing. And from the way that you guys are explaining it, it kind of sounds like the authorities were involved with a child abduction ring. That's why the adopted kid was with him. Just a different philosophy. Okay, have a good day. Keep your own time ticking. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks for the voicemail. I don't think you can rule anything out in that case. There's a lot of mysteries to that one as well. I don't think we touched on that angle just because there was no evidence,
right,
or no nothing to really back that up, but it's kind of hard to throw anything off the table at this point.
It's definitely mysterious.
Hi, guys. This is Tracy, and I'm calling from Fort St. John, BC in northern Canada. I was just listening to your podcast. Which one was it? Beverly Jane Potter, and your one voicemail person left a voicemail saying she's from Fort St. John. I wanted to reach out to her and say howdy. Anyways, I have a couple of cases up here that would be, I think, interesting for you guys to cover. The one is, the biggest one I can think of is Justice for Jonathan, a young boy that was killed, and there's been no arrests, and police say they don't have enough evidence to convict, but pretty much everybody in town knows about it and knows who did it. So I just wanted to call in and say hi and love you guys. Don't really have a favorite out of the two of you, but you are my favorites to listen to. Keep your own time ticking and take care.
I think she said she didn't really have a favorite yet.
So are you going to lobby? Because that's what you normally do.
I don't lobby.
Pander, lobby, whatever you want to call it. Cry until you get your way. No, we appreciate the voicemail very much. All right, buddy, that's it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Dive into true crime on Pluto TV. Unravel the mysteries with Forensic Files and 48 Hours. Investigate crimes with Dateline 24/7 and Unsolved Mysteries. With thousands of free crime movies and TV shows, Pluto TV is the true home of crime. Download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming true crime on live channels and on demand. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Are you looking for a new job or want a career change? Look no further than Monster.com. Need a little help standing out? Our expert resume writing services will make sure you shine. Want to brush up on your interview skills? Engage with our AI interview prep tool. Want some advice on negotiating your new salary? Visit our salary tools and extensive library of career advice articles, and you'll have all the tips and tricks you'll need to succeed. Visit Monster.com today and take the first step towards your career. Monster.com. Find your right job fit.